The anime begins in a bustling city known for its free trade. At one of the bustling markets, a heated argument breaks out between a supposed royal envoy and a hardworking merchant. The envoy offers to purchase the merchant's wares at a fraction of the price they were listed for, in defiance of the city's established regulations. Just as tensions are about to boil over, a young woman named Cecilia Campbell steps in to defuse the situation. With a swift, commanding presence, she chases away the noisy envoy and even brandishes her sword in warning, ensuring that the fair trade practices of the city are upheld. As the intimidated envoy slinks away, the onlookers shower Cecilia with compliments for her bravery. Embarrassed by the attention, she explains that she was merely fulfilling her duties as a member of the Free Trade City Defense Knights. Just as the commotion begins to die down, another disturbance erupts not far from where Cecilia stands. Suddenly, a disheveled, elderly man with a wild, unkempt appearance is causing a ruckus, swinging his sword and destroying the surrounding objects in a fit of rage. To everyone's surprise, the old man was once a revered knight who had survived a brutal war. However, the trauma of the battlefield took a toll on his mental health, causing him to fall into a state of distress. As he continues to wreak havoc, Cecilia takes action. Instead of resorting to violence, she approaches the man with a calm demeanor and attempts to talk him down, determined to bring peace to the troubled soul. Despite Cecilia's efforts to calm the old man, he does not heed her words and she is forced to draw her sword. However, as a rookie knight, she is no match for the old man's experience and strength, and she is quickly overpowered with a single blow, her sword breaking in the process. Just as the old man is about to deliver a fatal strike, she is saved by a young blacksmith named Luke Ainsworth, who happens upon the scene. Armed with a katana sword, Luke demonstrates remarkable skill in battle, his sword proving sharp enough to withstand even the old man's weapon. Impressed by his sword, Cecilia watches as he defeats the ex-knight, and then abruptly leaves without a word. Soon after, Luke's butler, Lisa, arrives to tend to the injured Cecilia. She apologizes for Luke's aloof behavior, offering comfort and aid in her master's place. After the incident, Cecilia approached a skilled weapons craftsman with her shattered sword, hoping to have it repaired. However, the swordsmith delivered the bad news that the weapon was beyond repair. Despite this, she persisted in pleading with the swordsmith, explaining that the sword held immense sentimental value as it had been passed down through her family. Despite her pleas, the swordsmith remained firm, explaining that even if the sword could be fixed, it would not be fit for combat. With hope rekindled in her heart, Cecilia remembered Luke's formidable sword. She asked Patty Baldwin, a servant at the weapons craftsman's, for information on his whereabouts. Upon receiving the information, she journeyed to the village and set out to find Luke's home. When she arrived at the address provided by Patty, Cecilia was greeted by Lisa, who had been with Luke during their encounter at the market. Then she explained her purpose for coming to see Luke, and Lisa warmly invited her inside. She thanked Luke for his kindness and asked if he could make her a katana similar to his own. However, Luke remained aloof and immediately declined Cecilia's request, explaining that since his father's passing, his family had received no orders for swords. Just as he finished speaking, a warning bell rang out, signaling danger in the village. In the forest, the city defense knights were battling fiercely against some vicious mutants, who had been created by a mysterious man in a black robe and a bandit. The bandit watched with glee as many of the knights fell to the overwhelming strength of the mutants. Soon after, Cecilia, Luke, and Lisa arrived at the scene and witnessed several knights lying helplessly near the guarded cargo train. They also saw the mutants roaming around and without hesitation, Cecilia grabbed a fallen knight's sword and charged at the mutants. However, her recklessness put her in peril, but Luke was quick to save her from an imminent attack by one of the mutants. At that time, Cecilia was taken aback by Luke's unique sword fighting style, as she had never seen anyone dodge incoming attacks with such grace and precision. She praised his movements and strikes, describing them as smooth, efficient, and deadly. With one swift slash, Luke was able to defeat the mutants that had threatened Cecilia. The bandit, incensed by Luke's display of power, called for the man in the black robe to bring forth more mutants. Just as Luke and the others were about to leave, a strange explosion echoed from the forest, accompanied by a strange light. A portion of the forest near the blast began to freeze over, and he realized that someone had made a pact with the devil, causing the explosion. Soon after, an ice monster resembling a spider emerged from the forest, standing before them. Shortly after, Luke picked up his talisman stone and called Lisa. He asked her to join him for an important ritual. Once she arrived, they stood across from each other, creating a powerful magic circle. Then he placed his katana into the glowing orb in the center, and to everyone's surprise, it transformed into a blazing flame katana. With his new weapon in hand, Luke was ready to face the menacing ice monster. When the battle raged on, Cecilia watched with bated breath. She was filled with worry as the ice monster attacked Luke relentlessly. But Lisa reassured her, explaining that Luke had predicted every move his opponent would make and was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In the end, he emerged victorious, splitting the monster into two with a mighty blow. As Luke approached Cecilia and Lisa, Cecilia, eager to show her gratitude, bumped into him and caused her cracked armor to fall apart, revealing her bare chest. Luke was shocked, and Cecilia, embarrassed and panicked, reacted by striking him. The next day, Cecilia returned to apologize to Luke, but he was still upset. With bruises still evident on his face, Luke felt that what had happened was not his fault, but rather her own clumsiness. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of Independent Trade City, the three heads of city security were meeting with Mayor Hugo Haussmann. They discussed Luke's absence from the meeting, as well as the recent appearance of demons in their town. The discussion brought back memories of the devastating war that occurred 44 years prior. The security heads and Mayor Haussmann were deeply concerned that the demon's appearance signaled the awakening of Valbanel. Quasar Hannibal, the head of the Knights, warned that if Valbanel were to be revived, it would inevitably lead to the destruction of the world. The only way to prevent such a catastrophe, he said, was to obtain the Holy Sword as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Luke and Lisa were working hard to forge iron ore into a knife. There, she watched from the doorway, in awe of their skill. After completing the knife, Luke returned home, with Cecilia following close behind. She still tried to convince him to make her a katana, but he explained that the process was vastly different from that of making the swords used by knights. Luke warned Cecilia that creating a katana demanded a tremendous amount of effort and patience, things that she might not comprehend. Despite his words, she remained steadfast in her pursuit to obtain a katana crafted by Luke himself. So passionate and determined was Cecilia that she went as far as to humbly plead with him. Luke was moved by Cecilia's persistence and agreed to forge the katana, provided that she paid the necessary fees. But when she learned of the hefty cost, she was taken aback. Despite the hefty sum, Cecilia proposed paying in installments, hoping for some leniency from Luke. However, he was firm in his stance, insisting on full payment before he began the work. Frustrated, Cecilia left Luke's abode and headed back to the palace, grumbling about the unreasonable fees he had quoted. Soon after, she was approached by Hannibal, who presented her with a special assignment. He took Cecilia to Hugo's room and explained that she was to protect a royal heirloom, a magic sword. Upon arrival, she was introduced to a girl named Arya. Cecilia was bewildered and asked Hugo where the item she was meant to guard was located. Arya then revealed that she was the magic sword in disguise, born 44 years prior. Later in the day, she returned to Luke's house and asked Lisa to join her for a meal at a restaurant. However, an argument erupted between them, leading Arya to mistake them for lovers. Once the argument with Luke had subsided, Cecilia revealed her true purpose for her visit, to showcase the magic sword in her possession. Arya. She asked Arya to demonstrate her powers, and without hesitation, Arya began chanting a spell with her eyes closed. Suddenly, her body lit up, and she transformed into a sword. Then Cecilia unsheathed her and swung at a tree, showcasing her wind powers which allowed her to split the air. After impressing Luke with Arya's abilities, the three of them, Cecilia, Arya, and Lisa, went to a restaurant to enjoy a meal together. They then took a stroll around the city, and during their journey, Arya shared her past with them. She revealed that she first awoke on a battlefield, 44 years ago, during a battle against Valbanel. She was in the form of a sword and had no memory of how she got there or who had wielded her. All she knew was that many lives had been lost by her blade. Early the next morning, Cecilia was seen perfecting her sword technique. Not long after, she was approached by Arya, who had just woken up from her slumber. The two of them discussed Cecilia's sword style, and she revealed to Arya that she was practicing the moves necessary to wield Luke's katana. She explained that his sword style was unusual, but highly effective when using a katana, and she felt that in order to master the weapon, she had to first learn its unique style. Once she finished her training, Cecilia ventured downtown to check on the preparations for the upcoming exhibition. At the exhibition venue, she ran into Hannibal and Hugo, who were deep in conversation. To her surprise, Hannibal informed her that she would be performing a magic sword act at the exhibition's opening ceremony. This sudden revelation left her caught off guard, and she felt that she wouldn't have enough time to properly prepare. The next day, Luke and Lisa arrived at the center of the exhibition in search of a magic sword that could be used to defeat the gods. Despite numerous exhibitions in the past, he had yet to find the sword he was seeking that was sold by arms dealers. Meanwhile, Cecilia was on edge, as she was due to perform in the show. She turned to Arya for help, hoping they could deliver the best performance together on stage. As Cecilia and Arya took the stage in their sword forms, they began to showcase their magic sword display. However, Cecilia spotted an old knight in the crowd who had previously been defeated by Luke in the marketplace. This unexpected sight made her extremely panicked, especially when she noticed an unusual magical aura emanating from the knight's chest. To everyone's surprise, the old knight transformed into a fire demon and began wreaking havoc on the show. Cecilia bravely attempted to fight the old knight, but her power was not yet strong enough to match the knight's. Even Arya, who was in Cecilia's hold, was taken by the old knight and used as a weapon to increase the range of its attacks. Fortunately, Luke, who was in attendance at the exhibition, came to Cecilia's rescue. Together with Lisa, they performed a ritual that allowed Luke to harness the magic of his katana. With his help, Cecilia was able to retrieve Arya and eventually defeat the old knight by utilizing the wind power from Arya's sword. A few days after the demon's appearance in the town, Lisa woke up as usual, at an early hour. Due to Luke's house's location among the residents' farms, she was able to engage in various activities in the morning, such as assisting residents in drawing water from the well, delivering knives ordered by the residents, and bringing baskets of crops from the residents. After completing all these tasks, Lisa returned to Luke's house to clean up and prepare breakfast for herself and Luke, who was still asleep. Over breakfast, they checked their knife orders from customers. Later in the day, Cecilia and Arya visited Luke's residence and shared a meal together. He reminded her that he would not make a katana for her unless she paid the initial manufacturing fee. Then they talked about the incident caused by humans entering into a contract with the devil. Luke explained that the contract was made by offering human flesh as a bargaining chip. Later that day, Luke, Lisa, Cecilia, and Arya headed to the exhibition to purchase some supplies. While browsing the offerings, Cecilia wondered about Luke's relationship with Lisa. She was curious because Lisa had played a significant role in his life, despite not being related to him. Luke explained that he had stumbled upon Lisa and decided to take care of her. During the trip to the exhibition, Luke also spoke about the dangers of demon contracts, which were formed by offering human flesh as a sacrifice. He explained that the contracts were used in the Valbanil War and turned most of the participants into demons. The contracts could be made by opening one's chest and reciting death verses engraved on their heart, or through forcing someone else to make the contract. This was deemed highly dangerous. As Luke and Lisa walked hand in hand towards their home, she eagerly chatted with him. Despite her efforts to engage with him, Luke remained cold and distant, responding to her questions in a monotone voice. Feeling dejected, she mustered up the courage to ask his opinion on the new clothes she had just bought. To her surprise, Luke stopped in his tracks and turned to her, presenting her with a hat that perfectly complemented her outfit. Lisa was overcome with joy and tears at the realization that he had been paying attention to her all along, despite his reserved demeanor. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Cecilia and Arya were being pursued by three girls donned in black robes. Doris and Margot, both magic sword wielders, were accompanied by Penelope, a dagger user who had the ability to neutralize all sword-based magic, including Arya's. At Luke's home, Lisa was visited by two girls named Charlotte Firobisher and Evadne. Charlotte revealed to Lisa that she was from the royal family, and Lisa invited the girls to meet Luke. Then, Charlotte proudly informed him that she had come to take him away, but he uninterestedly told her to leave. This upset her, and she challenged him to a fight outside. Once outside, she asked Evadne to transform into a sword, revealing that Evadne was also a magic sword, much like Arya. Unfortunately, Charlotte lacked skill in using the sword, and was easily defeated by Luke. After accepting her defeat, she informed Luke and Lisa that her subordinates were after Cecilia's magic sword. Shortly after, Luke and Lisa immediately rushed to Cecilia's side. Upon arrival, He quickly overpowered Charlotte's 3 bodyguards who were caught off guard while trying to take Cecilia's sword. Afterwards, Luke brought Charlotte and her bodyguards to meet with Hugo in his office. A heated argument broke out between Charlotte and Cecilia, as Charlotte continued to push for the return of the magic sword, Arya, to the kingdom. This caused Hugo to question her claims of being a princess, as he was unsure if the king would send his daughter out of the palace. Charlotte then revealed that she and her mother had been banished from the kingdom for unknown reasons. She believed that if she could bring the magic sword, Arya, and the blacksmith to the king, she could restore her mother's reputation. To prove her claim, she handed over a sword engraved with the royal family's initials for Hugo to verify its authenticity. While Hugo took some time to verify the authenticity of the sword, he also sent a letter to the kingdom for further confirmation. During the wait, Charlotte requested to stay at Cecilia's residence, to which Cecilia was initially resistant but eventually agreed due to the higher standard of living at a knight's residence compared to that of ordinary citizens. In the afternoon, Charlotte and her followers arrived at Cecilia's home, and were taken aback by its less impressive appearance compared to their expectations. Their surprise only escalated when they encountered harsh treatment from Cecilia's maid, Fio, who made it clear that she did not care about Charlotte's status. Fio told them that in order to reside in Cecilia's house, they would have to work as maids under her supervision. Meanwhile, the 3 magic swords that Charlotte possessed, which could not take human form, were now in the care of Hugo as a precautionary measure. And Evadne, the fire magic sword, was being kept in a secure location. The following morning, Arya's curiosity about her true identity led her to visit Evadne in jail. She questioned Evadne about their existence as magic swords and the reason for their creation. Then Evadne revealed that the magic sword was the result of a demonic contract, and that the true purpose of their existence would be revealed in due time. Later, Hugo and Hannibal arrived at Cecilia's house, where they met with Charlotte and her subordinates. Then Hugo brought a letter from the kingdom that confirmed Charlotte's identity. However, the contents of the letter left everyone stunned. The king claimed that there was no such person as Charlotte Firobisher in the royal family, and accused her family of being traitors for stealing the kingdom's magic sword. As a result, the king demanded the confiscation of the magic sword and punishment for her according to royal law. Upon learning of the situation, Hugo declared that he would remain neutral and not get involved in Charlotte's problems with the kingdom. However, he advised her to seek refuge in the Ristic military nation, as he had heard that the royal troops were on the move, searching for her in the independent trade city. With no other options left, Charlotte decided to leave the city and seek protection. The following day, before embarking on their journey to the Ristic military nation, she warned Cecilia to be cautious of a man named Siegfried. She revealed that Siegfried was the one who instigated her and her subordinates to acquire the 4 magic swords, and that he was known for training strange creatures. Later on, Cecilia was having breakfast with her mother, Camilla. To her surprise, she learned that Cecilia was close to a man named Luke. In response, she commanded Fio to give Cecilia her former royal attire and instructed her to ask Luke on a date. Feeling humiliated, Cecilia left the house in her mother's dress, trying to avoid being seen by others. However, her efforts were in vain, as a blacksmith recognized her and called out to her. The blacksmith asked her to deliver a girl named Elsa, who needed to repair her knife, to Luke. Long story short, Cecilia and Elsa arrived at Luke's place. Despite feeling embarrassed at first, Cecilia soon realized that Luke was indifferent to their appearance and focused on his work. She informed him that she had brought a customer who wanted to fix her knife. Upon examining the knife, he declared that it could no longer be repaired as the core had been damaged. However, Lisa offered to give it a try. As they waited for Lisa to fix the knife, Luke invited Cecilia to attend a funeral with him. At the funeral, he stopped in front of a tombstone and revealed that it was the grave of Lisa Oakwood, his childhood friend who he failed to protect and was killed by Valbenil years prior. So when they were playing together, Lisa was feeling restless and decided to take Luke to explore a forbidden area behind the volcano. Little did they know that they would soon encounter Valbenil, who would tragically snatch her away, leaving Luke powerless to save her. Tragically, Luke's father would also fall victim to Valbenil when he came searching for them. Years later, Luke brought Cecilia to the same place, feeling that she bore a strong resemblance to Lisa. One stormy night, as he was sharpening his katana, he was approached by an old man named Reagan who wielded a magical sword capable of controlling lightning. He sensed danger and stood his ground, But he was unable to fight back against Regan, who eventually walked away after coughing up blood from his illness. Regan, who was lying weak, vowed to avenge his son's death at the hands of Valbenil. Elsa, who was serving as his maid, pleaded with him to reconsider, as it would put her life in danger. However, a man named Siegfried appeared and offered to help Regan in his quest for revenge. A few days later, Cecilia and Arya visited Luke's home, where they were met by a returned Regan, now accompanied by Elsa, who was revealed to be a magical sword created from Regan's hatred. Luke, aware of his abilities, tried to intervene, but was stopped by the sudden appearance of Siegfried. In the ensuing battle, Luke was gravely injured by Siegfried's rot-inducing magic sword, but Regan ultimately fell to Cecilia and Arya, despite Elsa's valiant efforts to protect him. As Siegfried prepared to leave the battlefield, he informed the group that the ultimate fate of all magic swords was to slay the demon Valbenil. He also revealed that Regan had come to Luke's home to target Lisa, as her blood carried a strong connection to Valbenil, making her a demon. To everyone's surprise, he confirmed the truth of Siegfried's words. He told Cecilia that Lisa was the unintended result of his wish to escape Valbenil during their adventure in the cave 3 years prior. The next day, after laying Elsa and Regan to rest, Lisa invited Cecilia and Arya to lunch, but they declined due to a work assignment. However, when she waited a long time and they did not arrive, she was left feeling sad and rejected after realizing that Cecilia was distancing herself now that she knew the truth about Lisa being a devil. However, Luke appeared unaffected by Cecilia's absence, cautioning Lisa not to get her expectations too high, as they were merely roommates from the outset. Despite this, she was aware of the pain Luke must be feeling as he prepared to confront his troubled past. Meanwhile, Cecilia visited her father's grave, grappling with her conflicting emotions. Arya, observing her friend's turmoil, attempted to guide her, pointing out the importance of being honest with oneself. Admitting that she, too, was a devil like Lisa, Arya posed a question to Cecilia, asking if she would also reject their friendship. At that time, she was unable to provide an answer, causing Arya to affirm that despite their devilish tendencies, they remained her friends, and that would never change. With Arya's wise words, she came to understand her misstep and resolved to seek out Lisa to offer an apology. Later, Cecilia was assigned to accompany the royal officials as they passed through the gate alongside her fellow knights. As Siegfried stepped down from his carriage, she recognized him as the robed figure who had instigated Regan. She attempted to attack him, but was swiftly restrained by his bodyguards and her knightly partners. Soon after, Hannibal arrived to intervene, reminding Cecilia that she needed evidence to make accusations against someone. Siegfried claimed to have never met her before and belittled her as a novice knight. Despite this, she persisted in demanding that he be punished, convinced that he was the same man she had been searching for in the black robe. Then Hannibal informed her that Siegfried was, in fact, a messenger of the Empire. But she argued that Charlotte had told her that Siegfried was a wicked individual who had made a deal with the devil. Soon after, Luke arrived on the scene to attend the meeting, ignoring the ongoing argument between Cecilia and Siegfried as he made his way inside. To quell the disturbance, Hannibal requested that Siegfried promptly enter the meeting room. Once they were all gathered inside, the higher-ups began gossiping about Luke, as he had yet to obtain the god-slaying sword required to defeat Valbenil. The insults didn't end there. The higher-ups also maligned Lisa for her devilish nature, even going so far as to propose her expulsion from the independent trade city. Upon hearing the insults directed towards Lisa, Cecilia stepped forward to defend her in front of the higher-ups, explaining their relationship with Luke. Instead of appreciating her defense, he reprimanded her and demanded she leave the meeting room. Then Hannibal was forced to escort Cecilia out so that the meeting could proceed smoothly. Later, she sought out Lisa to apologize for her behavior from the previous day. Lisa graciously accepted her apology and began to share her own story about Luke. Ignoring Luke's protests, Cecilia returned to the meeting and strode into the room with determination to resolve Lisa's issue. However, he became angry and told her to stay out of it, reminding her that he failed to protect Lisa Oakwood and that Valbenil could kill him. But Cecilia pressed on, presenting her thoughts to the royal officials that Lisa was created to care for him. Siegfried, who had been underestimating Cecilia, took up the challenge and asked her to prove her words. In response, she unsheathed Luke's katana and placed it on the table. She then challenged Siegfried to split the sword, promising to give up if he succeeded. Confidently, he swung his sword, but to his surprise it broke upon striking the katana, proving Cecilia's words to be true. There, he was humiliated and swore revenge against her. As the afternoon sun began to set, Luke was making his way back from the meeting when he encountered Lisa on a bridge. She was crying and feeling overwhelmed by the shadow of Lisa Oakwood that constantly loomed over her. Then Luke comforted her, expressing his apologies for placing pressure on her and offering to set her free so she could make her own choices. But Lisa refused, telling him that all she wanted was to be by his side until the end. Their relationship improved, and the scene was witnessed by Cecilia and Arya. Just as they thought everything was peaceful, a mutant suddenly burst from the river, aiming to attack Lisa. Luke quickly unsheathed his katana and defeated the mutant, but more mutants began to emerge from the river in large numbers. At that time, Cecilia remembered Siegfried's words from the meeting earlier and now believed her suspicion of him to be correct, as he appeared to take pleasure in watching the chaos unfold in Independent Trade City. The knights soon discovered that Siegfried was behind the attack and sought to bring him to justice. As the battle raged on, Cecilia and Arya fought valiantly against the attacking mutants, while Luke fearlessly wielded his katana. From a distance, Cecilia watched in horror as the once peaceful Independent Trade City was now being destroyed by demonic forces from both the ground and the air. In the heart of the city, Hannibal and his knights desperately tried to fend off the never-ending wave of mutants. Knowing that time was running out, Cecilia quickly raced to the city center along with Arya, while Luke chased after Siegfried to settle the score. Upon reaching Siegfried's location, Luke stood resolutely, ready to defeat him. Then Siegfried taunted him, asking why he was coming after him. With a determined voice, Luke declared that he was doing it all for a girl who wanted to protect her beloved city, and that girl was none other than Cecilia. As Cecilia and the other knights were battling the mutants, they also took on the task of safely evacuating the residence. Meanwhile, Lisa tearfully approached her and asked for help in finding Luke as they had gotten separated during the chaos. Then Hannibal entrusted Cecilia to assist Lisa, while he and the knights focused on securing the safety of the residence. However, during their search for Luke, Cecilia and Lisa were ambushed by Siegfried's bodyguards. Despite the challenge, Cecilia managed to defeat them with the help of Arya. Sadly, due to overexertion of magic, Arya transformed back into a human and became weak and helpless. Nonetheless, she urged them to continue searching for Luke, reminding them of their promise to protect Independent Trade City and bring peace to its residents. She also added that she would catch up with them once she had recovered. Soon after, Cecilia and Lisa finally reached Luke's location where they witnessed a fierce battle between Luke and Siegfried. Despite putting up a good fight, he ultimately fell after being struck by Siegfried's magic sword. Despite Luke's request to leave him behind, Cecilia refused and instead stood up to Siegfried without a sword. She encouraged him to let go of his past guilt and to have the determination to fight, even if their odds of winning were slim. Hearing that words had an impact on Luke and reignited his fighting spirit. He asked Lisa for help in crafting a new katana and together, they performed the ritual to create it. In no time, a new katana was formed and he presented it to Cecilia, declaring that he was unable to fight anymore. Without hesitation, Cecilia took up Luke's katana and engaged in a fierce battle with Siegfried. She managed to shatter his sword of darkness and delivered a fatal blow to his chest. Sensing that the tide was turning against him, Siegfried fled the scene, promising to seek revenge against Cecilia. As Lisa tended to Luke's wounds, Cecilia was shocked to see the katana she had been using disintegrate into dust. He explained that it was the result of her defeating the enemy's sword. The anime ends with the trio setting off to save the Independent Trade City from the remaining mutants. The moral that can be learned from this anime is about reminding them not to get bogged down by regret for past mistakes, as there are still opportunities to make things right.